The information provided in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Viewers should use their own discretion and consult with a healthcare professional for personalized guidance and recommendations. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Health Revolution. Join the movement. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and we are thrilled that you are here with us today. And no matter where you're tuning in from, how you are streaming on in, don't forget to hit the subscribe button at the bottom. And also, just so you know, as we are hearing some impactful, important information for today's episode, remember that we have show notes at the bottom of your screen where you see. Don't forget to click on that. You're going to have some important reference information for today. And when it comes to our health, it's not just the physical health, it's also the overall mental wellness and the overall being that we are, how we are setting foot step by step throughout every chapter of our lives. So health and wellness is such an incredible umbrella. It also includes things like happiness and joy. And so as we are diving in each new day, of course, we have the opportunity to change our personal history. And when it comes to joy, sometimes it's really hard for us to tap into that, especially if we find that we are having some challenging chapters, some things that are unexpected that just come our way that we did not anticipate. So this is why today's episode is extremely important, because we're gonna do a deeper dive and unpack all of this. And so I got to tell you about my next guest. She is an incredible woman who is changing the face in terms of mental health and all that this implies. Her name is Dr. Mariya Shiyko, and she's PhD. She is a university professor turned entrepreneur. She has empowered and she empowers heart-centered change makers to live a life of purpose and joy. Mariya is an award-winning educator. Her books, as in more than one. Her first book is From Russia to Joy. We're going to talk about that. And then her second book, My Money Book for Joyful and Creative Living. They both question mainstream paradigm around self-sacrifice and self-neglect in order to achieve goals. So we get to challenge that a little bit. Mariya combines unique education of Western sciences and alternative healing. She is an important voice for us to really have a little listen to, and then more. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Mariya Shiyko. Mariya, how are you doing today?
Adriana, I'm feeling fantastic, especially after your introduction. Made me feel so good.
Well, I'll tell you, you bring the receipts, and I'm excited to have you on the show today. So of course, with a little bit of the sprinkling of what we're going to talk about today, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you came to be the woman that you are representing the space.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Russia, and even though my background comes from a different country, I think it also resonates with many other countries. For a while, I was following a very traditional path of getting education, being married. Maybe the non-traditional thing was kind of immigrating to the US. And then I hit a point in my late 30s, I'm not in my late 20s, just before I was turning 30, when I started questioning everything, and I really was so unhappy with my life despite many achievements that I have made, and due to hard work and many sacrifices. And at that point, I realized that I cannot really live my life by what someone else tells me, because it never brings happiness. I cannot outsource my power, my decision making, my choices in life to other people's opinion on how my life should unfold, because not only I get stuck, but I found myself in a very deep hole of not knowing who I am, losing myself completely in the process, and having externally some things that maybe people desire, but they were not aligned with my soul. They were not aligned with me. And therefore, it was not success, it was a failure. So I had to dig myself out of that hole. And it was a journey, and it's still a journey for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm amazed at all that you've done, and of course, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that as you are a woman who is continuing to grow in your space, you are challenging a lot of paradigms. Of course, the paradigm that came from you coming to the United States from Russia, and then of course redefining who you decided to be and who you were determined to be. Talk a little bit about those transitions and what you noticed as you were experiencing these chapters in your journey.
It's interesting because I grew up in the environment where asking yourself questions such as what is it that I really want, or listening to yourself internally within yourself, it's not something that I was necessarily taught to do. And so when I came to the United States, I was immensely lost. There were financial struggles, there were language barriers, there were social isolation, and that was quite challenging. But the way I tried to deal with those challenges was trying to find what I should do from outside of myself. I was trying to just ask people, ask my parents, ask others around me, kind of look at the society and see, okay, what profession should I get? What profession pays well, or what profession is prestigious? So it was all kind of based on what people think, what people suggest I should do. And I followed that. It's not like I skipped that step. I actually followed that step, and I worked my butt off to get a PhD, and I had 5 jobs at the same time, and I
Jobs, oh my goodness.
it was a little bit crazy. It was just crazy. It was challenging, and I was really struggling financially. But then eventually I made it, and I remember getting a professorship job. And the moment when it's kind of you're climbing the mountain and you're at the top of the mountain, and I was offered the professorship job at a prestigious university, you would think that one needs to be happy when they get it. But I remember when I accepted the job, I actually cried. I was miserable, and I didn't know why yet. I cried. And things unfolded later that just the more I stayed kind of on this path of following the external voices, the more I felt that I don't know myself. My health started deteriorating. I would have migraines. I would have just a lot of problems physically and emotionally. My mental health would deteriorate. And so I had to find, in the process of kind of while I was living this life that was successful, quote unquote, I had to little by little start solving the puzzle of why my external world does not match my internal feeling. Because what I felt inside did not match what other people would say. Oh my God, she's so amazing. She's so successful. She is, I should follow her path.
And as you're saying that, of course, it reminds me how there's almost, so it appears like we've got these social pressures that that the definition of success looks like this, and this. And so then there lies the expectation. And so then, of course, in how you're telling your story right now, I can certainly visualize you doing all that you can for success and following what appears to be what we've come to know, what we recognize and just receive as success. Did you know? So at that time, did you feel the internal struggle growing, or was it a moment? Was it right after that moment where you were offered the position where it hit you and suddenly it was like an epiphany?
No, it was a process. It was definitely a process because I was told that I have to get married by a specific age, and I did. I was told that I have to have children by a specific age, and I actually did not. And that kind of stirred a lot of inner suffering. And then I was told that I'm supposed to follow a path that is like a professional path. And I followed that path, and I realized that I am not happy at that path. And little by little, I just started noticing how I feel. I was never really taught to pay attention to my inner kind of world or my feelings, or the fact that even I have intuition or the fact that I might know better than people from the outside, because it was more of kind of suppressing, just listen outside over listening inside. And so I started noticing that even though I was praised, even though I was given awards, even though I was traveling to conferences and speaking in front of many people, even though I was married to like a handsome guy, what was happening inside did not match. And so the process was, little by little, I stumbled upon a meditation book, and then I, went to yoga classes. And after a yoga class, as I know now, I didn't know at that time, as I know now, as my nervous system would relax, grief was coming out. So I would cry. I would often find myself crying in yoga classes, and I'm like, what's going on with me? Why do I have so many emotions? And then found myself just reading about the meditation book or approach, and I said, okay, let me try it out, because at this point, I'm not sure what to do with myself. Yeah.
And and as you say that, it strikes me that it seems like it crosses cultures. It's almost like this universal, especially through society. It seems like it's just a universal message that you pay attention to the outside, the external appearance, the external posture that you have. That certain things epitomize success, and so then, as you were making a name for you here and doing all that you could, I'm wondering, did you feel like it was just something that you were expected to do, that it wasn't just, say, here in the United States, but it was just something that was an external message that was just given to you from day one?
Yes, I believe so. And I have lived now an equal amount of time in Russia and the US. I see that while maybe the conditioning is slightly different, but I think there are still many unspoken expectations. And I've worked with clients that come from different cultures, from India, from Australia, from the UK, from Russia, from the US, of course. I see that these programs or these unspoken expectations, they're present. Maybe the messaging is slightly different, but whether it's a religious conditioning or communist conditioning or gender conditioning or political conditioning, all of this is there, kind of placing stories in our heads, which we try to adhere to in one way or another.
So I've never thought of it that way before, that just across cultures, that this would be one universal message, and it's something obviously that we don't talk about. Did you find that as you were continuing to have the different roles in your professional life, that other women were having this, or even other people in general were having this struggle? Or was it something that felt like, wow, okay, not quite sure if others can relate, but I'm gonna start to unpack this a little bit and see what I can draw from this?
To be quite honest, I felt very alone in the process, because I didn't feel always safe to share my inner tribulations with colleagues, or if I did, I actually sometimes was misunderstood. I didn't necessarily feel that people were sharing it. And by nature, I was created in this way, I think, to kind of look deeply into things. So I often ask questions, and some people don't ask questions. I always ask questions about why things are the way they are. And so I started asking questions like, do I really need to do this, or I don't have to do this? Who told me that I need to be a mother, or should I not be a mother? Who told me that I need to get married? Maybe I should not get married. It just started, all these questions. It's almost like my fire got released, and because I started realizing that a lot of people don't really know these answers, or they kind of live on autopilot. But I started questioning every single thing, and then I started reaching out to people who were open to these types of conversations, and some of them became my mentors or teachers, or just sometimes kind of a 15-minute conversation. But at that point, I was so hungry to figure things out. I was like a hungry child that never was fed. And so I started following this inner lead, like like whatever I was inspired, I was following this inner spark and inspiration and hunger.
So how important was it back then for you to have the people in your corner, or was it more important for you to be determined, to be clear in what your next step was? Was either or important at that time, or was it something that just that you needed from both spaces?
I actually had to shut off a lot of, I started observing, it's almost like this lenses from my kind of shades from my eyes, they went off, and I started noticing. I started just observing and watching everything, how people live, how people talk, how people make choices. And I realized that some people just, they don't really say what they mean, and they for whatever reason, with no judgment. And so it really became apparent to me very soon that I have to be very discerning. I have to be like, I was very eager, but I was also unlearning to be naive, so to speak. I was unlearning my naiveness and just trusting everything, trusting every source of information and everything that's coming to me. So I started paying attention to actually if people feel happy or not. And, if they not happy because they occupy a particular social status, but if they actually appear happy, if how they communicate. And then if they were happy, I started asking them questions like, and usually people who would give me answers, they were extremely honest and vulnerable, and they would share about their struggles, and they would also share with me what helped them.
You brought up a powerful point that, and I thought it's just I'm giving second, additional thought to it. You said I stopped being nice, and not long ago, I had heard someone say earlier in the year. I heard someone say, there's a difference between being nice and being kind, and that stuck with me. Being nice is almost like, as we understand it to be, being this level of appeasing and just conforming. But being kind, there's a level of being honest, but then you're honoring your space. And so ever since I heard that, it really it hit home for me, like, okay, there's a difference between being nice and being kind. And it's better to be kind than to say be nice. And so my kudos to you for being able to trust the path that you're on. Was there anything that was a determining factor for you to give the green light to trust your gut?
So there were different moments, different pivotal moments. I think one thing that really helped me was to learn how to work with my emotions. And this happened through intensive meditation training. So it provided a first step for me to know that my emotions will not kind of ruin my life, because I am an emotional person. I think, as women we are. But what I didn't know at the time when I was training, because it was a very masculine training approach to meditation, was that to just observe the emotions and kind of don't pay attention to me, don't pay attention to them. What I know now, which I didn't know back then, is that often emotions are kind of little whispers from our soul about where we're going. And if we completely neglect or kind of disregard emotions, then we don't know the direction. So the meditation training was probably one of the very important trainings in the early stages of my path. Then the other important step was actually extremely fun. I started traveling the world, and when you travel, you have to be in the moment. You make spontaneous choices. You have to trust yourself so much. And I was traveling very much in a kind of non-traditional way. So it's not like I would go somewhere and stay in a hotel, but I would actually backpack and kind of buy my ticket, open-ended ticket for like 2-3 months, and then trust that things will unfold. So that was a very fun way of trusting myself, because I was taught that the world is a very dangerous place and that women cannot travel on their own. necessarily, and there I was like often met with kindness or meeting amazing people and feeling supported and feeling like I was really living my life to the fullest, which felt so good.
That's fantastic. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We will be right back here on the Health Revolution.
Coming this spring, by popular demand, the second season show on the Tour of Love.
And the E360 TV platform is saying we want the Tour of Love.
With winner of the first Global Impactor Award, Tamara Hunter, along with Emmy-winning co-host Skip Thomas.
We are going on tour, on the road. It's time. Love unites, and there is healing through connections. This is a worldwide movement, the Tour of Love.
We're back here on the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and we are spending some quality time with my guest today, Dr. Mariya Shiyko. We are diving into the elements of what allows us to truly tap into joy. She had shared with us, those of you who are tuning in with us right now, she had shared with us the transitions that she had been making to get to the point where she is today, to be able to speak and help others really question the self-sacrifice and self-neglect myth in order to achieve goals and to find true joy. Mariya, you were talking about how you tapped into meditation. You were really expanding your resources to find you and to truly embrace a better place for you internally. Can you talk to us a little bit about what it means? What's your definition of joy, and how did you come to embrace breaking down different paradigms for you to then teaching others to do so?
So I feel that joy is directly linked to our physical embodiment of ourselves. And joy to me is being authentic to yourself and living an expressed and full life. Joy to me does not mean that you only have good days and you never feel down. But I have also learned to know that when we are aligned with our most joyful path, we actually tend to have fewer problems in life. Like, for example, our body gets healthier. We experience fewer sicknesses and diseases because one reason for those is our body speaking that something is wrong. In some way, we are neglecting ourselves. I also come from the metaphysical training, and this was a big part of my path. And to me, intuition, or when we kind of neglect the voice of our soul, neglect our intuition, things happen in life, but they don't happen as a form of punishment. They are there as kind of gentle, sometimes not so gentle nudging to kind of wake up, shake up, and readjust. So I find that the more we're tuning in, and that the joy comes from this true alignment with oneself and with one's purpose and one's path, then yes, of course, you learn to be joyful. And, there are some, you laugh when we think of people who are really happy. They have this demeanor of peacefulness and joy in them, but I think it comes not only surrendering to life, not only surrendering to the path, but also truly staying aligned with yourself.
So why do you think so many people have a hard time embracing joy or recognizing how important joy is?
Oh, because it's work, Adriana, it's work. It's work against, because I feel it takes a lot of courage to do that, to really follow your path. It's on some level, it's easier to follow kind of the path of expectations, so being scared of what other people think. But I don't think that people are really satisfied or happy if they do that. And so I feel that a joyful path, a true aligned path, it takes quite a bit of effort, like waking up in the morning and having a practice in the morning, whether it's meditation or exercise practice, some kind of centering, asking yourself questions, doing something new that you've never done in your life, starting a business. And it's not easy. It's not always easy.
That's true. I love the fact that you're combining two spaces and integrating the two so that you can have that platform to share and to teach with those who are seeking just what that means, how to attain the joy in all that implies in our lives, the Western sciences, the alternative healing. Where are the drastic differences, in your opinion, that you've seen in your studies and even in your dialogues with colleagues?
This is a great question. So I find that the modern sciences, actually sciences that are more cutting edge sciences, they recognize spirituality, they recognize how important the power of oneself is in building a life they want. So, for example, neuroplasticity, the epigenetics, they recognize that what is given to us is not determining our life. We have an immense capacity for change and transformation. And there have been many studies in medicine, in mental health, in just life stories where people completely transform their lives, and the modern science is accepted. But I think, and so I completely agree with my colleagues there. And I think there are some, like intuition, there are some ways to measure intuition right now with MRI scans, with experimental studies. There are ways to do that. But I think it's not practiced enough, or it's not yet fully incorporated into the way we do education, in the way we create workspaces, in the way we build parenting practices, or political systems or social structures. I feel sciences is catching up with a lot of the alternative healing knowledge. There are also modern sciences around using alternative treatments for all kinds of mental and physical ailments. And so I think there are many people who are doing amazing work, but there are some kind of outdated structures, whether it's academic structures or the way sciences is done, that are not there yet.
So where are the surprising conversations coming from? Have you had conversations that maybe where you didn't expect to go as deep with the need for this to be talked about more, how society, people in general, are dealing with this impacting their overall health, the finding the joy, the integrating of how managing emotions? Where have you had conversations that surprised you of where they originated from?
So I am pleasantly surprised lately about the entrepreneurial world, where people are way more open to cutting edge technology about reprogramming their mind, reprogramming their body. And because I feel that a lot of entrepreneurs, they're open-minded, they also want to see results. And they want to translate a lot of this theoretical knowledge into actually the tools that they can use on a daily basis. So it's been my pleasant surprise that there is, like a niche where people are quite open. I think it's becoming a little bit more mainstream now with, programs like yours, with the TV shows like yours, and with a lot of people really trying to put this information and knowledge out there. And so it's been really a pleasant surprise in this way that I feel it's like, there are small changes and more voices are being heard from spirituality and sciences merging together, or from the changes that we can make for ourselves and self-empowerment.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. As we know more and more people who are entering the entrepreneur space, or obviously COVID changed the landscape all the way around. It appears as though to be successful in the entrepreneur space means you have to get creative, means that, say, like, one person has to, you have to think outside the box. And so then in doing so, then so many different areas of our life become challenged. And how we're taking care of ourselves, how we, the definition of management of ourselves and of the things that need our attention. And so I'm wondering if how that plays a much bigger role than, say, than where we are recognizing. And talk a little bit more about that just that mindset shift, and why this space is so, it's evolving almost like at a rapid pace.
Yes, I feel what you're saying. I know what you're saying. It's I think it's extremely inspiring, and I think in many ways, to me, entrepreneurs will be the leaders of the future, to be quite honest, because we are cutting out of the old paradigm and old model of people changing the world, sacrificing themselves. I mean, it's something that I talk about a lot. So, for example, money becomes a central part of the conversation, and reimbursement, fair reimbursement for our services, and recognizing our needs as humans. So I feel that the entrepreneur world is now probably the cutting edge, like, leadership world. And I personally believe it will be expanding. And it's good because it really forces people to become self-led, and in many ways, other influencing other kind of, pockets of light, so to speak, in their business. Because to really be an entrepreneur, you have to be extremely disciplined, self-led, constantly open-minded, as you said, creative, transformative, innovative. And this is really pushing what we are thinking of in terms of being a human potential, what is possible to be a human. So right now, that's what I see it. But it's, it also has its own challenges, but it forces us to rethink how we do work, how we conceptualize work, lean more into our joy, lean more into our creativity, lean more into our unique talent and skills, and kind of find new ways of doing business and living.
So this is your area of study and your expertise. What did you, over the last couple of years, obviously COVID, okay, so COVID was the big thing that impacted globally. What did you notice? Where were some of the areas that were changing faster than others in terms of really questioning the paradigm shift, in terms of that self-sacrifice and the self-neglect? What did you notice in terms of the trend right before and then since COVID has affected us all?
So I feel that it's almost, some things, I don't know if the kind of the universal energy is changing. I feel that people are less tolerant of, well, BS, let's put it this way. They just want to be, and especially heart-centered change makers, heart-centered entrepreneurs. I think that's what I find, that they want clarity. They want, so to speak, they want to catch their time, like carpe diem, catch the moment, be aware of how how many days or years you have in this life. And I think COVID really put like a very transparent and not ambivalent message about this, is that, your time on this earth matters, and just do what is important to you and kind of don't sweat the other stuff. Just focus on what matters to you. And I think that some people are catching this message and really making drastic changes in their lives. And I think another aspect of it is really self-care, because the old mentality, the old paradigm of work is neglecting ourselves and spending maybe 50, 60 hours at work. What I see often with my clients when I work with them is that it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's almost like something happens, their health, they feel exhausted, they feel they don't have enough energy. So they are almost like forced to take care for themselves, or they're forced to hire help. They're forced to outsource. They're forced to work smarter and not harder. And these are the trends that I'm seeing just by kind of being in this world and working with people and also with myself. And it's almost like you have to be really honest and true to yourself, because nothing else works.
I couldn't agree more. And you're right in that this is the, looking at level of purpose and the fact that tomorrow isn't promised to anyone. So in a lot of aspects, a surprising twist of COVID, not that anybody wanted COVID to happen, but out of that came increased value in our time and in taking care of ourselves. Where does one start to begin to live a life of purpose and joy? Where does one begin? Say viewers are tuning in and they're like, great, I get it, I completely agree. Where do I start? Where would you want for them to start?
I would love for them to first, and that's very, very important, to not judge where they are right now, to not judge themselves where they are right now, because coming from the place of self-judgment towards purpose and joy is not going to work. So the first is the attitude. The first step is the attitude to not judge where you are, because the new paradigm of stepping into purpose and joy is not coming from the place, yes, it will require change, but from the place of self-love rather than self-judgment. And so the practical action step might be actually incorporating self-love practice into their life. Because when we really truly love ourselves, that's when alignment happens. Loving ourselves means listening to ourselves, honoring our needs, and sometimes making uncomfortable, honest decisions, and that really are uncomfortable. They challenge our old behaviors. And I would say that, for example, I can say to people, oh, well, take a day off, go into the forest or go into nature, because it's extremely healing, and actually spend time with yourself, ask yourself questions that you want to really ask, and then wait for answers kind of drop in, and then take actions. Take actions, because it's not enough to know the answers. It's really important to implement them and be proactively active in taking actions in life. And do this every day. Do this if you don't have a day to go to the forest, go for 15 minutes for a walk. Do this every day and repeat, because this way you honor yourself, you come from the place of acceptance and understanding, self-love, self-compassion, and then taking aligned actions from this inner knowing, from this inner guidance, self-guidance.
So it's a decision, a decision, and then actionable steps.
Yes, decision. And sometimes it's like a little bit right and left. It's not always a linear path.
Very, very, very true. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back here on the Health Revolution.
is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been showing that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
Back here on the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison. Wherever you're tuning in, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We are extremely glad that you're here. And of course, those of you who are tuning in live, remember you can always add comments and questions, and as they appear during the live programming, we can certainly answer. And of course, you're catching the replay. We are super glad that you're here, spending quality time with my guest today, Dr. Mariya Shiyko, who is very well versed, expertise in helping others find joy and purpose, leading from a heart-centered standpoint. She's also the author of 2 books, From Russia to Joy and my money book for joyful and creative living. So I wanted to dive into your book real quickly because I'm reading it right now. Actually, I have a copy right here, and of course you see it on the screen for those of you who are tuning in. And this is a delightful memoir because I love how you're transparent and you're painting quite the picture. And in talking about joy, one thing that really struck me in chapter 3, I'm going to read a small excerpt here for our viewers. It says, "Meet anger. Anger and I are best friends. We know each other very well. We are the closest relatives, bonded by blood. He is burning, fiery, and destructive. Anger deserves a bad reputation. It's like constipation. You want to go to the bathroom, but because you were told that anger is bad, you hold it in. You complain to everyone, your discomfort is obvious. And everyone runs away from you because you are uptight, squirming, pained." I thought, what a powerful way to describe in a very short sentences how anger can be disruptive and destructive. So how do you lead someone to, what's your favorite ways to make a U-turn if someone is really struggling in the space of anger?
I had no idea we'll be talking about anger today, but it's a very useful concept.
Touching on that.
Yes. So I want to say that it's very important to be extremely gentle with oneself when you experience anger, because often we process trauma, we process generational trauma, or sometimes very hard experiences in our life that rightfully bring out anger. And anger is actually an appropriate response because, children, they show this emotion, they don't judge it. And when we don't judge an emotion, when we don't have a reaction towards an emotion and saying, okay, this is bad, whether it's culturally or gender conditioning, whatever that is, it's important to understand that the reason that emotion is there is because you need to have it. You need to have this emotion. And if you are able to, for me, I'm not a big person who, go break something, even though you can go boxing or take a boxing class and kind of let it out, but you need to experience the emotion or express it in some way, in a safe way, of course, in a safe way. I mean, the way I have processed it with myself, or the way I often share it with my clients, is that anger is, there are several layers. Anger is the top layer. Underneath anger, there's usually grief or pain. And so it's important to kind of understand where you go with it and feel the anger, feel the emotion, but also tap into an underlying layer, which is much gentler, and it's way more heart opening, way more at the root of thing and integration and healing. And when we pass the layer of anger, we're able to actually feel self-compassion. We're able to feel our soul, so to speak, and what the clarity of the next step comes in, because anger is important, but sometimes it gives like this energy of action and this energy of like, I'm not going to stand this anymore, which is an amazing energy. And it served me in my life tremendously, because I had to put up boundaries with certain people and certain circumstances in my life where anger gave me the fire and courage to do those things. So sometimes anger is that. But once we do those actions, we also need to be just, for the healing purposes, to also be gentle with ourselves, so we don't run or take actions on anger all the time.
And I love your description of that. And it's neat for the viewers to hear this, because surely there could be anyone watching at any point in time and feeling like that this resonates with them, that maybe that they're struggling with anger, and that with your emphasis on joy, being able to recognize it, experience it, but then transition into that productive energy where you are striving for joy and coming out of, say, this chapter. So I love how you're gentler with that, but then there's that resilience. There's this level of resilience of your work that that I think needs to be acknowledged. And talk a little bit about your two books. Talk a little bit about From Russia to Joy, and then your other book, My Money Book for Joyful and Creative Living.
So, the processes for both books were interesting. So for this memoir, I actually really doubted if I needed to write this book, and I had actually created a draft, and then I deleted the files. I also burned my diaries, and I'm like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. I kind of processed it, but then I couldn't sleep. I couldn't move on. This book was haunting me. And I think I'm realizing now, it's been, I think, 3 years or so that I published this book. And I'm realizing that sometimes our stories or our journeys, they need to be witnessed. It's almost like a part of why we're here, because we're here to share our experiences with others. It was challenging for me to write this book because it was a vulnerable process. I didn't go into all of the details of my life because I think it would be too much. But I wanted to extract pieces of wisdom and pieces of lessons that really stuck with me and really moved on with me, because it's From Russia to Joy. It has this counter position and juxtaposition of, pain to love, pain to joy, or struggles to joy. And I find that my journey was like that. And the emphasis was, of course, on the lessons that I have learned in the process, and also how to overcome some challenging experiences in life. So that was like the memoir. And the money book is very fun. It has a completely different kind of, a slightly different voice to it, because it was also a collaboration with my dear friend, Lindsay Hunt. And we combined together kind of the sharp and witty, poetic expression of money. And we also added art and pictures to it. And we made so much fun of the limiting beliefs. We approached it in a very creative and non-traditional way, because most money books are written a little bit in a somber voice and very serious voice.
Honestly, I don't doesn't necessarily, I don't put joy and money together, but I do just because financial responsibilities that come along with it. But I love how you are putting the spin of joy in a topic like this.
Yes, I think, my co-author of this book, one of her kind of intentions was, if she made me laugh with her edits, we were on the right track. So, and it worked. So often, it just gets you a little bit out of your mind, gets you out of the conditioning, and really from the readers of this book or from the audience that's read it, they found it very non-traditional, but also enlightening at the same time.
I do love that, and I'll tell you, this is an incredible book. I'm reading through it right now, and I just love I love how you paint the picture for the reader. So it's definitely a must read. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We will be right back here on The Health Revolution.
Jeff Pearson here, host of Invisible Condition, where we talk about all the people who are living and thriving with all those conditions that you can't necessarily see from the outside. Join me every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on E360 TV.
We're back here on The Health Revolution, spending some quality time with my guest today, Dr. Mariya Shiyko, who is well-versed in helping others live heart-centered lives, living a life of purpose and joy. And it's been incredible to spend time with you. As our viewers are continuing to tune in and listen to your message, where can they find you? And do you have any upcoming events or things on the horizon for you?
Yes, I'm really excited. So I am still developing my, things keep shifting as we're speaking, but I do have an upcoming course this year. Very likely it's going to be for heart-centered entrepreneurs. And so to find out more about this course, people can go to my website at mariyashiyko.love and subscribe to my newsletter. And I'm also visible on social media. I'm on Instagram or Facebook, and you can find me there at Mariya Shiyko as well. It's just my first and last name. And I would love for the viewers to just even say, hi, I saw you on the Health Revolution TV show. So I would be happy to respond to their message personally.
Yes, absolutely. And so viewers, you can see her website here on our screen, and that's where you can find all of her information. And it continues to be on an ongoing basis as we round out this year, and then we're tuning into the next year. And any last gems that you want to share with our audience? Anything else that one piece of info that would be helpful for them to transition to joy in their lives?
I would say never give up on your dreams. That would be a big piece, kind of advice or takeaway. Never give up on your dreams, because the purpose of your dreams is to store you, to wake you up and shake you up. And it doesn't mean that it's always easy to pursue our dreams or achieve our dreams. But in the process, you transform into being a new person, you find so many things about yourself you had no idea existed in you, so many gifts. And I think when you follow your dreams and pursue your dreams, just don't give up on them, because it really helps you wake up in the morning. It helps you to have meaning and passion, and just really know that the time that you're spending here on earth is really well worthy of your time and effort.
A challenge worth conquering, 100%. So real quickly, our viewers, for those of you tuning in, no matter where you are, you can always check out our website at www.thehealthrevolutiontv.com. You can always sign up for subscribe to our show to get upcoming developments, things that are coming up on the horizon, or share feedback, input, all of that. And with that, Dr. Mariya Shiyko, thank you so much for spending time today. I value your time, and I know our viewers do too.
Adriana, it was really my pleasure. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I wish you much success.
Same, I agree. Thank you. Thank you for your time, and for everyone tuning in. Have an amazing rest of your day or evening, no matter where you're tuning in. And we are on Tuesdays and Thursdays on the Achieve TV channel at E360 TV, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until our next show, take care. We'll see you soon.